The Northern Union 2020 for joint military exercise between the Chinese and Russian militaries is about to commence according to the PLA Daily Report on September 9th. From September 8th to 9. Chinese exercise personnel and participating forces traveled to Knev-Ichi Airport in the Russian Far East by direct air transfer, set up an exercise command post, and assembled forces one after another. At present, the forces for the China-Russia joint military exercise have been assembled. At the strategic level of the joint exercise, public reports show that the upcoming Northern Union 2020 for military exercise can be regarded as the highlight of the China-Russia joint military exercises in the second half of this year. And there are many breakthroughs in strategy. First, the military exercises between China and Russia are carried out in an interleaved manner. The Northern Union 2020 for joint military exercise is led by us and cooperated with by Russia. At the same time, Russia is also promoting its own Ocean 2020 for joint strategic exercise. Our participating forces will simultaneously participate in this strategic exercise led by the Russian Navy. It is equivalent to the two exercises of the Chinese and Russian militaries being intertwined, taking turns to lead, and both sides cooperate with each other for implementation. Second, our military has begun to make extensive use of Russian military facilities and conduct military exercises in Russia's fortified sea areas. Judging from the exercise area of this Northern Union 2020 for military exercise, our Air Force aviation units conduct combat transfer to the Russian Far East and are expected to be deployed at airports such as Knev-Ichi and Vladivostok. The Naval Surface Combat Forces enter the Sea of Japan and the Sea of Okhotsk among them. The Sea of Okhotsk has always been a fortified sea area carefully selected by the Soviet-Russian Pacific Fleet. Our military can use Russian airports to conduct joint exercises with the Russian military in the fortified sea area of the Russian Navy, from which the degree of strategic mutual trust between the two sides can be seen. At the tactical level of the joint exercise, the Northern Union 2020 involves a large scale of troops and many elements of troops. The participating subjects implemented are dazzling according to the existing information in terms of participating forces. It is currently determined that the Chinese Navy has mobilized multiple surface ships. According to the report of the Joint Staff Office of the Japanese Ministry of Defense on the evening of September 9th, from September 7th to 8, multiple Chinese naval surface ships were detected passing through the Tsushima Strait, including the Type 055 large destroyer No. 100 for Wuxi, the Type 052D destroyer No. 117 Xining, the Type 05 for a frigate No. 547 Linyi, the Type 903 a comprehensive supply ship No. 889 Taihu, the Type 815 electronic reconnaissance ship No. 794, etc. Passing through the Tsushima Strait into batches and entering the Sea of Japan and heading towards the military port of the Russian Pacific Fleet at the same time. The Russian Navy has also dispatched a large number of surface ships. The current movements of the Russian Pacific Fleet observed by the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force include the Type 1155M anti-submarine ship Marshal Shaposhnikov, Admiral Ponteliv, the Type 0380 frigate Perfect, Loud, Biting Cold, Russian Hero Alda RTS Yardens Hap over V, and even the Academician KRYL over V space measurement ship. Judging from the scale of forces, the surface combat forces dispatched by the Chinese and Russian navies this time can be said to be extremely powerful in terms of Air Force participating forces. The participating forces of the Chinese Air Force are organized based on the Air Force of the Northern Theater Command. According to the report of the military channel of CCTV, the participating aircraft types of the Chinese Air Force include the J-16 fighter jet, the J-10B fighter jet, the KJ-500 early warning and command aircraft, and the Z-20 Kansas search and rescue helicopter. The participating forces of the Russian Aerospace Forces are organized based on the 11th Air Defense Army Group of the Eastern Military Region and the Naval Aviation of the Pacific Fleet. The participating aircraft types include the Su-30 SM fighter jet, the MiG-31BM interceptor, and the Il-38 anti-submarine aircraft at present. The confirmed jointly participating aircraft types of the Chinese and Russian militaries amount to as many as 100. As for the final joint exercise subjects, since the Chinese and Russian navies and air forces have dispatched so many troops and the force elements are also extremely complete, then it is worth looking forward to what exercise subjects will be implemented in the end. It is estimated that the most basic joint sea and air maneuvers are indispensable. In the case of the Chinese Air Force dispatching the Z-20 Kansas helicopter, it is expected that combat search and rescue behind enemy lines and rescuing distressed pilots will also be taken as exercise subjects. On this basis, the air forces of China and Russia will of course carry out an advanced version of the exercise. The advanced version is the real deal. For example, joint air defense warfare, surface warfare and anti-submarine warfare exercises of the Maritime Exercise Formation, joint air defense interception, ground attack, and aviation sea control combat exercises of the air formation. There will definitely be many highlights in the exercises. Whether long-range regional air defense systems, surface warfare systems will be used as a highlight, worthy of attention. Finally, the Chinese and Russian militaries will also have a surprise in the exercise. According to the situation notified by the defense ministries of the two countries, the Chinese and Russian militaries will simultaneously implement the 5th Joint Strategic Cruise of the Chinese and Russian militaries while conducting the exercise. This joint strategic cruise will be implemented in the Pacific Ocean. I believe everyone still vividly remembers the scene of the large fleet composed of more than 10 warships of the Chinese and Russian navies breaking through the Tsugaru Strait in previous years. The sudden appearance of the ship Shadows in the Mist, and the huge Type 055 large destroyer leading the way like a mountain. People are also full of expectations for the Chinese and Russian navies to go out to the Aleutian Islands and conduct strategic cruises in the North Pacific. In fact, judging from the recent actions of the Chinese and Russian navies and air forces, China's attention to the North Pacific is increasing day by day. Therefore, when the Chinese and Russian navies complete the joint exercise and conduct strategic cruises this time, it is highly likely that the North Pacific will still be the focus of the mission. In short, from a strategic perspective, the joint military exercises and joint strategic cruises between China and Russia have developed to the present. From the earliest stage where both sides set off from their own airports and military ports, respectively, and be assembled in the high seas or over the high seas to implement joint exercise and strategic cruise tasks, to now both sides setting off from their own airports and military ports and passing through the airspace of partner countries. Now it has further developed to mutual landing at airports and mutual use of each other's airspace and fortified sea areas. There is no doubt that it means that the strategic cooperation between the Chinese and Russian militaries has reached a higher level. As I said, China and Russia are currently in the best stage in history from the perspective of geopolitics. The two countries are in a back-to-back state. Russia's main strategic direction is westward, in Eastern Europe, while China's main strategic direction is eastward, in the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia. There is no direct geopolitical conflict on the northern border between the two countries. This is the biggest difference in the geopolitical pattern from the ancient Chinese Central Plains dynasties and grassland peoples. On the contrary, China and Russia take care of their own areas in the Eurasian political region. You are responsible for East Asia, and I am responsible for Eastern Europe. This itself contains the embryonic form of a multipolar world. If China and Russia can maintain the existing geopolitical pattern, each taking care of their own areas, and at the same time maintain mutual understanding in Central Asia and the Middle East. Then, many things will be easier to handle. The greatest strategic significance of the current China-Russia Joint Strategic Cruise and Military Exercise is and it shows that China and Russia still maintain a high degree of mutual trust and high-level strategic cooperation. This is the best news that all the forces around the world eagerly awaiting multipolarization and all the just forces that want to break the dominance of Western countries can hear from the perspective of campaigns. In fact, there is nothing more to say. The fact that the two sides can jointly set up a campaign command post and implement joint campaign operations proves that the cooperation and coordination between the Chinese and Russian militaries at the campaign level have reached a very deep level. Behind campaign coordination is the high degree of commonality between the two militaries in communication protocols and data link interfaces, in combat and training regulations, and in command and staff operations. The two militaries can now conduct joint exercises. In certain specific circumstances, they can conduct joint operations. In such a sensitive region as Northeast Asia, when it comes to the joint operations of the Chinese and Russian militaries, we won't say who is the JIJI king. Of course, China and Russia have a high degree of mutual trust strategically and continuously conduct strategic announcements to the outside through joint military exercises, joint strategic cruises and other actions. Eventually, it still needs to be implemented at the tactical level. At the tactical level, we can only say that Russia is just barely satisfactory. In fact, the 11th Air Defense Army Group of the Eastern Military Region of the Russian Army does have good things. The 22nd and 23rd Regiments of the 303rd Fighter Aviation Division under the 11th Air Defense Army Group are elites of the aerospace forces. Among them, the 22nd Regiment is equipped with Su-35S fighter jets, and the 23rd Regiment is even the number 1 ace unit of the aerospace forces. The only Su-57 fighter regiment of the aerospace forces, but unfortunately, among these two regiments, the 22nd Regiment is estimated to have already been transferred to the Ukrainian front, and the 23rd Regiment is still in the equipment modification stage and has not formed combat effectiveness. As a result, only the Su-30SM and Su-30M2, as well as the MiG-31BM interceptor of the Naval Aviation of the Pacific Fleet, are now pulled out to conduct military exercises with China. Moreover, the early warning aircraft of the Russian aerospace forces also need to be prioritized for deployment to the Ukrainian battlefield. With only a few early warning aircraft, it is impossible to conduct joint exercises with the Chinese Air Force at all. As a result, anti-submarine aircraft like the Il-38 are needed for sea surveillance, while air surveillance is the responsibility of the KJ-500 of the Chinese Air Force. As for strategic electronic jamming aircraft, the Russian army probably has never even seen them. From this, we can also see the current distressed situation of the Russian aerospace forces. In contrast, the participating Chinese Navy and Air Force are truly in neat formation and equipped with advanced equipment. Just the J-16 fighter jet alone is something that the Russian aerospace forces would probably envy to death. This combined with the PL-15 is an invincible presence on the Ukrainian battlefield. As for the Type 05-D destroyer, it must be false to say that the Russian Navy doesn't want it now. This is much more useful than the large but impractical Type 1164 cruiser. Therefore, after a China-Russia joint military exercise and joint strategic cruise, we can only say that the world has really changed. The former big brother is now really behind China in overall strength. Probably that's it.